Quaker graveyard in Nantucket, the Warren Winslow dead at sea. Let man have dominion over the fishes of the sea, and the fowls of the air, and the beasts, and the whole earth, and every creeping creature that moveth upon the earth. A brackish reach of shoal off Nantucket, the sea was still breaking violently, and night had steamed into our North Atlantic fleet, when the drowned sailor clutched the dragnet. Light flashed from his matted head and marble feet. He grappled at the net with the coiled, hurtling muscles of his thighs. The corpse was bloodless, a botch of reds and whites. Its open, staring eyes were lustreless dead lights, or cabin windows on a stranded hulk heavy with sand. We weight the body, close its eyes, and heave it seaward whence it came, where the heel-headed dogfish barks its nose on Ahab's void and side, and the name is blocked in yellow chalk. Sailors, who pitched this portent at the sea, where dreadnoughts shall confess its hell-bent deity, when you are powerless to sandbag this Atlantic bulwark, faced by the earth-shaker, green, unwearied, chased in his steel scales. Ask for no Orphean lute to pluck life back. The guns of the steeled fleet recoil and then repeat the hoarse salute. Whenever winds are moving, and their breath heaves at the roped-in bulwarks of this pier, the terns and seagulls tremble at your death in these home waters. Sailor, can you hear the Pequod's sea wings beating landward fall headlong and break on our Atlantic wall? Off Sconset, where the yawing S-boats splash the bellbuoy with ballooning spinnakers, as the entangled, screeching main sheet clears the blocks. Off Nantucket, where lubbers lash the heavy surf and throw their long lead squids for bluefish. Seagulls blink their heavy lids seaward. The wind's wings beat upon the stone's cousin, and scream for you, and the claws rush at the sea's throat, and wring it in the slush of this old Quaker graveyard, where the bones cry out in the long night for the hurt beast, bobbing by Ahab's whaleboats in the east. All you recovered from Poseidon died with you, my cousin, and the harrowed brine is fruitless on the blue beard of the gods, stretching beyond us to the castles and stay in Nantucket's westward haven. To Cape Cod, guns cradled on the tide blast the eelgrass about a water clock of bilge and backwash, rile the salt and sand lashing earth's scaffold, rock our warships in the hand of the great God, where time's contrition blues whatever it was these Quaker sailors lost in the mad scramble of their lives. They died when time was open-eyed, wooden, childish. Only bones abide there in the nowhere where their boats were tossed sky-high, where mariners had fabled news of Is, the whited monster. What it cost them is their secret. In the sperm whale's slick I see the Quakers drown and hear their cry. If God himself had not been on our side, if God himself had not been on our side when the Atlantic rose against us, why then it had swallowed us up quick. This is the end of the whale road, and the whale who spewed Nantucket bones on the thrashed swell, and stirred the troubled waters to whirlpools to send the Pequod packing off to hell. This is the end of them three-quarters fools, snatching at straws to sail seaward and seaward on the turn-tail whale, spouting out blood and water as it rolls sick as a dog to these Atlantic shoals. Clamavimus, O depths, let the seagulls wail for water, for the deep where the high tide mutters to its hurt self, mutters and ebbs. Waves wallow in their wash, go out and out, leave only the death rattle of the crabs, the beach increasing its enormous snout suck striking the ocean's side. This is the end of running on the waves. We are poured out like water. Who will dance the mast-lashed master of Leviathans up from this field of Quakers in their unstoned graves? When the whale's viscera go, and the roll of its corruption overruns this world beyond tree-swept Nantucket and Woods Hole and Martha's Vineyard, sailor, will your sword whistle and fall and sink into the fat? In the great ash pit of Jehoshaphat, the bones cry for the blood of the white whale, the fat flukes arch and whack about its ears, the death lance churns into the sanctuary, tears the gun-blue swingle heaving like a flail, and hacks the coiling life out. It works and drags and rips the sperm whale's midriff into rags, gobbets of blubber spill to wind and weather. Sailor, and gulls go round the stoven timbers where the morning stars sing out together, and thunder shakes the white surf and dismembers the red flag hammered in the masthead. Hide our steel, Jonas Messias, in thy side. Our Lady of Walsingham. There once the penitents took off their shoes, and then walked barefoot the remaining mile, and the small trees, the stream, and hedgerows filed slowly along the munching English lane like cows to the old shrine, until you lose track of your dragging pain. The stream flows down under the druid tree. Shiloah's whirlpools gurgle and make glad the castle of God. Sailor, you were glad and whistled Zion by that stream. But see, Our Lady, too small for her canopy, sits near the altar. There's no comeliness at all, or charm in that expressionless face with its heavy eyelids. As before this face for centuries a memory, no ne species neque decor. Expressionless expresses God. It goes past castled Zion. She knows what God knows, not Calvary's cross or crib at Bethlehem now, and the world shall come to Walsingham. The empty winds are creaking, and the oak splatters and splatters on the cenotaph. The boughs are trembling, and a gaff bobs on the untimely stroke of the greased wash exploding on the shoal bell in the old mouth of the Atlantic. It's well, Atlantic, you're fouled with the blue sailors, sea monsters, upward angel, downward fish, unmarried and corroding, spare of flesh, mart once of supercilious winged clippers. Atlantic, where your bell trap guts its spoil, you could cut the brackish winds with a knife here in Nantucket, and cast up the time when the Lord God formed man in the sea's slime, and breathed into his face the breath of life, and blue-lunged combers lumbered to the kill. The Lord survives the rainbow of his will.
Poesie di Robert Lowell tradotte da Rolando Anzilotti. Il cimitero dei Quackeri a Nantucket. Un'amara lingua di basso fondale al largo di Nantucket. Il mare si rompeva ancora violento e la notte era entrata nella nostra flotta del Nord Atlantico, quando il marinaio annegato afferrò la rete. La luce balenò dal suo capo arruffato e dai piedi di marmo. Egli si aggrappò alla rete con i muscoli rigidi e attorti delle cosce. Il cadavere era esangue, a chiazze rosse e bianche, gli occhi aperti e fissi erano opachi vetri spenti, oblò di una carcassa incagliata grave di sabbia. Noi solleviamo il corpo, gli chiudiamo gli occhi e lo rendiamo al mare donde venne, là dove lo squalo dal muso attacco si spella il naso nel vuoto di Acab e nella fronte, e il nome è scritto in maiuscoletto col gesso giallo. Marinai che gettate questo portento al mare dove le corazzate testimonieranno la sua divinità infernale, quando nulla potete a rinsaldare questo baluardo dell'Atlantico, davanti a cui serge lo scuotitor della terra, verde instancabile casto nelle sue scaglie d'acciaio. Non chiedete liuto d'Orfeo per riafferrare col suono la vita. I cannoni della flotta d'acciaio balzano indietro e poi ripetono il rauco saluto. Allorché i venti si muovono e il loro soffio preme sui baluardi stretti a questo molo, le rondini del mare e i gabbiani tremano alla tua morte in queste acque casalinghe. Marinaio, le senti le ali marine del Pequod che battono verso terra, che ricadono a capofitto e si infrangono sulla nostra muraglia atlantica, al largo di Sconset, dove i cutter inclinati con gli spinnaker rigonfi coprono di spruzzi la boa, mentre la scotta aggrovigliata stridendo libera i bozzelli. Al largo di Nantucket, dove i marinai d'acqua dolce sferzano la densa risacca e gettano le lunghe esche di piombo per i pesci azzurri. Gabbiani socchiudono le loro gravi palpebre verso il mare. Le ali dei venti percuotono le pietre, cugino, e gridano per te, e gli artigli si avventano alla gola del mare e la torcono nella fanghiglia di questo antico cimitero quacchero, dove le ossa urlano nella lunga notte per la bestia ferita che riaffiora presso le baleniere di Acab ad oriente. Quanto recuperasti da Posidone perì con te, cugino, e l'acqua arata e sterile sull'azzurra barba del dio, distesa di qui verso i castelli di Spagna, porto di Nantucket volto ad occidente. Verso Cape Cod i cannoni nella culla della marea squarciano i sargassi in un orologio ad acqua di fondaccio e risucchio, intorbidano sale e sabbia, infrangendosi al palco della terra, cullano le nostre navi da guerra nella mano del grande Dio, dove la contrizione del tempo inazzurra quanto quei marinai quaccheri persero nella furiosa lotta per la vita. Morirono quando l'età era d'occhi spalancati, goffa e bambina. Solo ossa dimorano là nel nulla dove le loro navi furono scagliate fino al cielo, là dove i marinai avevano favoleggiato di colui che è il mostro bianco. Ciò che ad essi costò è il loro segreto. Nella scia del Capodoglio vedo i quaccheri annegare odo il loro grido. Se Dio stesso non fosse stato con noi, se Dio stesso non fosse stato con noi quando l'Atlantico si levò contro di noi, ecco, allora ci avrebbe ingoiato subito vivi. È finita la rotta delle balene e la balena che vomitava le ossa di Nantucket sull'onda trebbiata e muoveva in vortici le acque inquiete per mandare il Pequod spedito all'inferno. È finita per loro, pazzi per tre quarti, aggrappati a fili di paglia per far vela sempre più verso l'alto dietro alla virante balena che sputa sangue e acqua mentre si rotola fradicia come un cane a queste atlantiche secche. Clamavimus o abissi. Gemano per l'acqua i gabbiani, per il profondo dove l'alta marea mormora ferita a se stessa, mormora e rifluisce. Le onde si voltolano nel loro risucchio, vanno sempre più a largo, lasciano solo il funebre crepitio dei granchi mentre il lido cresce e il suo enorme grugno succhia il fianco dell'oceano. S'è finito di correre sulle onde, siamo riversati come l'acqua. Chi farà balzare il signore dei Leviatani legato all'albero da questo campo di quaccheri nelle loro tombe senza pietra? quando le viscere della balena si infrangono e l'onda della sua corruzione invade questo mondo, al di là di Nantucket spoglia di alberi e di Woods Hole e di Martha's Vineyard, o marinaio, sibilerà la tua spada e piomberà e affonderà nel grasso? A Josaphat nella gran fossa di ceneri le ossa invocano piangendo il sangue della balena bianca, le grasse pinne s'inarcano e la percuotono intorno agli orecchi, la lancia di morte zangola nel santuario, strappa il cuore brunito in brandelli che si sollevano a flagello e sminuzza fuori la vita attorcigliata. Scava e tende, squarcia il diaframma della balena, pezzi di grasso volano al vento, o marinaio, e gabbiani girano intorno alle assi sfondate dove le stelle del mattino cantano insieme e il tuono squassa la bianca schiuma e straccia la rossa bandiera inchiodata alla testa dell'albero. Nascondi il nostro acciaio, Giona Messia, nel tuo fianco. Nostra Signora di Walsingham. Lì un giorno i penitenti si toglievano le scarpe e poi camminavano scalzi l'ultimo miglio, e gli alberelli, un ruscello e le siepi vanno in fila lenti lungo il crocchiante sentiero inglese come mucche verso l'antico santuario, finché tu perdi traccia del dolore che ti trascina. Il ruscello scorre là sotto l'albero druidico, i fortici di Siloe gorgogliano e rallegrano il castello di Dio. Marinaio, sei stato felice ed hai fischiato a Sion presso quel ruscello. Ma guarda, Nostra Signora, troppo piccola per il suo baldacchino, è seduta vicino all'altare. Non c'è grazia né fascino in quel viso senza espressione, dalle palpebre abbassate. Come prima questo volto, ricordo di secoli, non est species neque decor. Inespressivo esprime Dio, va al di là delle mura di Sion. Ella conosce ciò che Dio conosce, non la croce del Calvario né la culla di Betlemme ora. E il mondo dovrà venire a Walsingham. I vacui venti scricchiolano e la quercia sgocciola e sgocciola sul cenotafio, i rami tremano e una fiocina sobbalza al colpo inopportuno dell'untuosa ondata che esplode su una campanella di secca nelle antiche fauci dell'Atlantico. È giusto. Tu sei contaminato, Atlantico, dagli azzurri marinai, mostri marini, angeli verso l'alto, pesci in basso. Mai sposato e corroditore, magro di carne, già mercato di superbi alati velieri, Atlantico, dove la tua valvola ingoia la sua preda, tu potresti tagliare con un coltello i venti salati qui a Nantucket e far rivivere l'ora in cui il Signore Dio formò l'uomo dal fango del mare e alitò nel suo viso il soffio di vita e i marosi dai polmoni azzurri rotolavano al massacro. Il Signore rimane dopo l'arcobaleno della sua volontà.
Where the rainbow ends, I saw the sky descending, black and white, not blue, on Boston, where the winters wore the skulls to jack-o'-lanterns on the slates, and hunger's skin and bone retrievers tore the chickadee and shrike. The thorn tree waits its victim, and tonight the worms will eat the dead wood to the foot of Ararat. The scyther's time and death, helmed locusts move upon the tree of breath. The wild engrafted olive and the root are withered, and a winter drifts to where the pepper pot, ironic rainbow, spans Charles River in its scales of scorched earth mild. I saw my city in the scales, the pans of judgment rising and descending, Piles of dead leaves char the air, and I'm a red arrow on this graph of revelations. Every dove is sold, the chapel's sharp-shinned eagle shifts its hold on serpent time, the rainbow's epitaph. In Boston, serpents whistle at the cold. The victim climbs the altar steps and sings, Hosanna to the lion, lamb, and beast who fans the furnace face of Is with wings. I breathe the ether of my marriage feast. At the high altar, gold and a fair cloth, I kneel and the wings beat my cheek. What can the dove of Jesus give you now but wisdom, exile? Stand and live. The dove has brought an olive branch to eat.
Dove termina l'arcobaleno? Vidi il cielo calare nero e bianco, non azzurro, su Boston, dove gli inverni riducevano i crani a morti secche sulle pietre tombali e gli allampanati inseguitori della fame sbranavano la cincia e la verla. Il rovo attende la sua vittima e stanotte i vermi roderanno i rami secchi fino al piede dell'Ararat. I falciatori, il tempo e la morte, locuste corazzate, vanno a posarsi sull'albero della vita. L'olivo selvatico innestato e la radice sono intristiti e un inverno si lascia portare là dove il pepperpot, ironico arcobaleno, valica il Charles River e le sue squame di miglia di terra bruciata. Vidi la mia città sulla bilancia, i piatti del giudizio salire e discendere. Mucchi di foglie morte bruciano l'aria e io sono una freccia rossa su questo grafico di rivelazioni. Venduta è ogni colomba. L'aquila della cappella, dai magri garetti, cambia la sua presa sul tempo serpente, l'epitaffio dell'arcobaleno. A Boston i serpenti fischiano al freddo. La vittima sale i gradini dell'altare e canta. Osanna al leone, all'agnello e alla colomba che soffia con le ali nel bagliore del viso di colui che è. Respiro l'aura della mia festa di nozze. All'altare maggiore oro e una bianca tovaglia. M'inginocchio e le ali toccano la mia guancia. Che cosa può darti ora la colomba di Gesù se non la saggezza, o esule? Alzati e vivi. La colomba ha portato un ramo d'olivo da mangiare.
After the surprising conversions, September 22nd. Sir, today I answer. In the latter part of May, hard on our Lord's ascension, it began to be more sensible. A gentleman of more than common understanding, strict in morals, pious in behavior, kicked against our goad. A man of some renown, and useful, honored person in the town. He came of melancholy parents, prone to secret spells. For years they kept alone. His uncle, I believe, was killed of it. Good people, with too much or little wit. I preached one Sabbath on a text from Kings. He showed concernment for his soul. Some things in his experience were hopeful. He would sit and watch the wind knocking a tree and praise this countryside our Lord has made. Once, when a poor man's heifer died, he laid a shilling on the doorsill. Though a thirst for loving shook him like a snake, he durst not entertain much hope of his estate in heaven. Once we saw him sitting late behind his attic window by a light that guttered on his Bible. Through that night he meditated terror, and he seen beyond advice or reason, for he dreamed that he was called to trumpet judgment day to Concord. In the latter part of May he cut his throat. And though the coroner judged him delirious, soon a noisome stir palsied our village. At Jehovah's nod, Satan seemed more let loose amongst us. God abandoned us to Satan, and he pressed us hard, until we thought we could not rest till we had done with life. Content was gone. All the good work was quashed. We were undone. The breath of God had carried out a planned and sensible withdrawal from this land. The multitude, once unconcerned with doubt, once neither callous, curious, nor devout, jumped at broad noon as though some peddler groaned at it in its familiar twang. My friend, cut your own throat, cut your own throat, now, now. September 22nd. Sir, the bough cracks with the unpicked apples, and at dawn the small-mouthed bass breaks water, gorged with spawn.
Dopo le sorprendenti conversioni. 22 settembre. Signore, oggi io rispondo. Verso la fine di maggio, sotto l'ascensione di nostro Signore, cominciò ad essere più sensibile. Un gentiluomo di intelligenza più che comune, rigido nella morale, pio nella condotta, resisté al nostro pungolo. Uomo di certa fama, persona benefica e onorata in città, e gli veniva di malinconici genitori, inclini a segrete afflizioni. Per anni se ne vissero soli. Suo zio, credo, ne fu ucciso. Brava gente, ma di troppo o poco cervello. Predicai una domenica su un passo dei re e gli mostrò preoccupazione per la sua anima. Nella sua vita c'erano cose che facevano sperare. Sedeva a volte a guardare il vento abbattere un albero e lodava questa campagna che il Signore ha fatto. Una volta, quando morì la giovenca di un pover'uomo, egli depose uno scellino sulla soglia. E sebbene la sete di amare lo scuotesse come un serpente, non osò nutrire troppa speranza del suo posto nel cielo. Una volta lo vedemmo sedere fino a tardi dietro la finestra di soffitta al lume d'una candela che colava sulla sua Bibbia. Per tutta quella notte egli meditò il terrore e sembrò incapace di consiglio o di ragione, poiché sognava d'esser chiamato a squillare il giorno del giudizio per Concord. Verso la fine di maggio si tagliò la gola e benché il giudice lo dichiarasse pazzo, subito una insana inquietudine paralizzò il nostro paese. Al cenno di Geova sembrò che Satana fosse più scatenato fra noi. Dio ci abbandonò a Satana e ci tormentò duramente finché credemmo di non poter aver quiete se non la finivamo con la vita. La pace se n'era andata, tutto il buon lavoro annientato. Eravamo disfatti. L'alito di Dio, confermo di segno, si era ormai ritirato da questo paese. La moltitudine, una volta non preoccupata dal dubbio, una volta né insensibile, né curiosa, né devota, trasaliva in pieno mezzogiorno come se qualche merciaiuolo gemesse con la sua solita cantilena. Amico, tagliati la gola, tagliati la gola, ora, ora. 22 settembre, Signore, il ramo si schianta per le mele non colte e all'alba la perca nera dalla stretta bocca fende l'acqua ingozzata di uova.
The exiles return. There mounts in squalls a sort of rusty mire, not ice, not snow, to leaguer the Hotel de Ville, where braced pig-iron dragons grip the blizzard to their rigor mortis. A bell grumbles when the reverberations strip the thatching from its spire. The search guns click and spit and split up timber and nick the slate roofs on the Holston Val. where torn-up tile-stones crown the victor. Fall and winter, spring and summer, guns unlimber and lumber down the narrow gabled street, past your gray, saurian ancestral house, where the dynamited walnut tree shadows a squat old wind-torn gate and cows the Yankee commandant. You will not see strutting children, or meet the peg-leg and reproachful chancellor with a forget-me-not in his buttonhole, when the unseasoned liberators roll into the market square, ground arms before the Rathaus. But already Lily stands virgin the risen Rhineland, and a rough cathedral lifts its eye. Pleasant enough, Voig and Trate, and your life is in your hands.
Il ritorno dell'esule. Si ammucchia a folate una specie di rugginosa fanghiglia, non ghiaccio, non neve, ad assediare l'Hôtel de Ville, dove aggrappati i dragoni di Ghisa attanagliano la tormenta al loro rigor mortis. Una campana brontola quando i rimbombi strappano la paglia dal tetto del suo campanile. Le mitragliere scattano, sputano, spaccano il legno e intaccano i tetti di lavagna sull'Ostenwald, dove le divelte tegole coronano il vincitore. Autunno e inverno, primavera e estate, i cannoni si sganciano e rotolano per la stretta via dai tetti aguzzi davanti alla tua grigia, dolente casa ancestrale, dove il noce squarciato dalla dinamite adombra una vecchia porta tozza, sgangherata dal vento, e intimidisce il comandante Yankee. Tu non vedrai tronfi bambini, né incontrerai l'infame cancelliere dalle gambe a cavicchio con un non ti scordar di me all'occhiello, quando gli acerbi liberatori si riverseranno nella piazza del mercato, poseranno a terra le armi davanti al Rathaus. Ma già le bancarelle dei gigli fan germogliare la risorta Renania e una sbozzata cattedrale solleva l'occhio. Assai gradevole, voi che entrate, e la vostra vita è nelle vostre mani.
Santayana's farewell to his nurses. The spirit giveth life. The letters kill the calm eccentric, if by heaven's will he found the church too good to be believed. You'll die, the sisters answer, as you lived. One wonders how they riddled what I wrote, or if the nuns were too pragmatical to nurse illusion long. Believing Paul, most miserable of men, had missed the boat by preaching truth was what his hand could reach, I gave the bottomless evangel soul. Essence took heart and landscape from my speech. Dying, I fancied the blue sisters pressed like geese girls hissing. Rome must give her best, till Curtius in full armor fill the whole.
L'addio di Santayana. Lo spirito dà vita. Uccideranno le lettere il quieto eccentrico, se per voler del cielo troppo bella la chiesa gli sembrò per crederla. Morirai, rispondono le suore, così come vivesti. Chissà come han passato al vaglio ciò che scrissi, o se troppo pratiche furono le suore per illudersi a lungo. Credendo che Paolo, il più abietto degli uomini, avesse mancato il segno predicando la verità, che era quant'egli giunse, io diedi all'infinito Evangelo l'anima. La sostanza prese cuore e figura dalle mie parole. Morendo mi parve che le suore azzurre mi stringessero come oche svolazzanti, sibilando: di a Roma il suo meglio, infinché Curzio armato non riempì la buca.
Skunk Hour. Nautilus Island's hermit heiress still lives through winter in her Spartan cottage. Her sheep still graze above the sea. Her son's a bishop. Her farmer is first selectman in our village. She's in her dotage, thirsting for the hierarchic privacy of Queen Victoria's century. She buys up all the eyesores facing her shore and lets them fall. The season's ill. We've lost our summer millionaire who seemed to leap from an L.L. Bean catalogue. His 9-knot yawl was auctioned off to lobstermen. A red fox stain covers Blue Hill. And now our fairy decorator brightens his shop for fall, his fishnets filled with orange cork, orange his cobbler's bench and all. There is no money in his work, he'd rather marry. One dark night, my Tudor Ford climbed the hill's skull. I watched for love cars. Lights turned down, they lay together hull to hull where the graveyard shelves on the town. My mind's not right. A car radio bleats, love, oh careless love. I hear my ill spirit sob in each blood cell as if my hand were at its throat. I myself am hell. Nobody is here. Only skunks that search in the moonlight for a bite to eat. They march on their souls up Main Street. White stripes, moonstruck eyes, red fire, under the chalk dry and spire of the Trinitarian Church. I stand on top of our back steps and breathe the rich air. A mother skunk with her column of kittens swills the garbage pail. She jabs her wedge head in a cup of sour cream, drops her ostrich tail, and will not scare. Memories of West Street and Lepke. Only teaching on Tuesdays, bookworming in pajamas fresh from the washer each morning. I hog a whole house on Boston's hardly passionate Marlborough Street, where even the man scavenging filth in the back alley trash cans has 2 children, a beach wagon, a helpmate, and is a young Republican. I have a 9-month daughter, young enough to be my granddaughter. Like the sun she rises in her flame flamingo infant's wear. These are the tranquilized 50s, and I am 40. Ought I to regret my seed time? I was a fire-breathing Catholic CO and made my manic statement telling off the state and president, and then sat waiting sentence in the bullpen beside a Negro boy with curlicues of marijuana in his hair. Given a year, I walked on the roof of the West Street jail, a short enclosure like my school soccer court, and saw the Hudson River once a day through sooty clothesline entanglements and bleaching khaki tenements. Strolling, I yammered metaphysics with Abramowitz, a jaundiced yellow. It's really tan, and flyweight pacifist. So vegetarian he wore rope shoes and preferred fallen fruit. He tried to convert Bioff and Brown, the Hollywood pimps, to his diet. Hairy, muscular, suburban, wearing chocolate double-breasted suits, they blew their tops and beat him black and blue. I was so out of things, I'd never heard of the Jehovah's Witnesses. "Are you a CO?" I asked a fellow jailbird. "No," he answered, "I'm a JW. He taught me the hospital tuck and pointed out the T-shirted back of Murder Incorporated Tsar Lepke, there piling towels on a rack, or dawdling off to his little segregated cell full of things forbidden the common man. A portable radio, a dresser, 2 toy American flags tied together with a ribbon of Easter palm. Flabby, bald, lobotomized, he drifted in a sheepish calm, where no agonizing reappraisal jarred his concentration on the electric chair, hanging like an oasis in his air of lost connections. My last afternoon with Uncle Devereux Winslow. 1922, the stone porch of my grandfather's summer house. I won't go with you. I want to stay with Grandpa. That's how I threw cold water on my mother and father's watery martini pipe dreams at Sunday dinner. Fontainebleau, Mattapoisett, Vancouver. Nowhere was anywhere after a summer at my grandfather's farm. Diamond-pointed, athirst and Norman, its alley of poplars paraded from grandmother's rose garden to a scary stand of virgin pine, scrub and paths forever pioneering. One afternoon in 1922, I sat on the stone porch looking through screens as black-grained as drifting coal. Talkie-talk, talkie-talk, clumped our Alpine Edwardian cuckoo clock, slung with bloody wooden game. Our farmer was cementing a root house under the hill. One of my hands was cool on a pile of black earth, the other warm on a pile of lime. All about me were the works of my grandfather's hands, snapshots of his Liberty Bell silver mine, his high school at Stuttgart am Neckar, stogie brown beams, fool's gold nuggets, octagonal red tiles sweaty with a secret dank, crummy with ant stale, a rocky mountain chaise long, its legs shellacked saplings, a pastel pale huckleberry fin fished with a broom straw in a basin hollowed out of a millstone. Like my grandfather, the decor was manly, comfortable, overbearing, disproportioned. What were those sunflowers, pumpkins floating shoulder high? They were Sadie and Nellie bearing pitchers of iced tea, oranges, lemons, mint, and peppermints, and a jug of shandy gaff which Grandpa made by blending half and half, yeasty, wheezing, homemade sarsaparilla with beer. The farm, entitled Chardonnay in the social register, was named for my grandfather's children, Charlotte, Devereux, and Sarah. No one had died there in my lifetime. Only Cinder, our Scotty puppy, paralyzed from gobbling toads. I sat mixing black earth and lime. I was 5.5. My formal pearl gray shorts had been worn for 3 minutes. My perfection was the Olympian poise of my models in the imperishable autumn display windows of Rogers Pete's Boys Store below the State House in Boston. Distorting drops of water pin-pricked my face in the basin's mirror. I was a stuffed toucan with a bibulous, multicolored beak. Up in the air, by the sunset window in the billiards room, my great-aunt Sarah was learning the overture to the Flying Dutchman and thundered on the keyboard of her dummy piano. With gauze skirts like a boudoir table, accordion-like yet soundless, it had been bought to spare the nerves of my grandmother Winslow, tone-deaf, quick as a cricket, now grousing through a paper-bound Zola and saying, Why does Sally thump forever on a toy no one can hear? 40 years earlier, 20, auburn-headed, a virtuoso wept over by Liszt, Aunt Sarah, the Winslow's only genius, had lifted her archaic Athenian nose and jilted an aster. Each morning she had practiced on the grand piano at Symphony Hall, death-like in the off-season summer, its naked Greek statues draped with purple like the saints during Holy Week. On the concert day, it's Winslow's nerve that failed. Now her investments were made by her brother. Her career was a danger signal for the nieces. High above us, Aunt Sarah lifted a hand from the dead keys of the dummy piano and declaimed grandly, "Barbarism lies behind me. Mannerism is ahead." I picked with a clean fingernail at the blue anchor on my sailor blouse, washed white as a spinnaker. What in the world was I wishing? A sail-colored horse browsing in the bulrushes, a fluff of the west wind puffing my blouse, kiting me over our 7 chimneys, troubling the waters. As small as sapphires were the ponds, Quiticus, Snippatuit, and Assawampset, halved by the island, where my uncle's duck blind floated in a barrage of smoke clouds. Double-barreled shotguns stuck out like bundles of baby crowbars. A single sculler in a camouflage kayak was quacking to the decoys. At the cabin between the waters, the nearest windows were already boarded. Uncle Devereux closing camp for the winter. As if posed for the engagement photograph, he was wearing his severe war uniform of a volunteer Canadian officer. Daylight from the doorway riddled his student posters, tacked helter-skelter on the walls as raw as a boardwalk. Mr. Punch, a watermelon in hockey tights, was tossing off a decanter of scotch. La Belle France, in red, white, and blue toga, was accepting the arm of her protector, the ingenue and porcine Edward VII. The pre-war music hall bells had goosenecks, glorious signatures, beauty molds, and coils of hair like rooster tails. The finest poster was 2 or 3 young men in khaki kilts being bushwhacked on the veldt. They were almost life-size. My uncle was dying at 29. "You are behaving like children," said my grandfather when my uncle and aunt left their 3 baby daughters and sailed for Europe on a second honeymoon. I cowered in terror. I wasn't a child at all. Unseen and all-seeing, I was Agrippina in the golden house of Nero. Near me was the white measuring door my grandfather had penciled with my uncle's heights. In 1911 he had stopped growing at just 6 feet. While I sat on the tiles and dug at the anchor in my sailor blouse, Uncle Devereux stood behind me. He was as brushed as Bayard, our riding horse. His face was putty. His blue coat and white trousers grew sharper and straighter. His coat was a blue jay's tail. His trousers were solid cream from the top of the bottle. He was animated, hierarchical, like a ginger-snap man in a clothes-press. He was dying of the incurable Hodgkin's disease. My hands were warm, then cool on the piles of earth and lime, a black pile and a white pile. Come winter, Uncle Devereux would blend to the one color.